God is about to start dealing with the Jews during Daniel's 70th week. And if Daniel's 70th week is about to begin, then by default, we are taken out of here at the rapture resurrection. That is why we watch these signs. And this is why God put the A right over the top of America, because a lot of people don't know this, but half the Jews on the planet are in America, and the other half are all in Israel, with a few stragglers spread about the world. So was that sign about the fall of America? Sure it was, but it was also a signal to the Jews that, hey, the time of Jacob's trouble is about to begin. Now, family, we've seen a celestial sign that kicked off this whole 7-year warning period with Revelation 12 sign, the P number blood moon tetrad in 2020, along with the Bethlehem star in the midst of it, the Nishimura comet and the child asteroid at the Feast of Trumpets 2023, marking the 1-year warning of the end of the 7-year warning, including the sign of Jonah. And yes, there were a bunch of solar eclipses and lunar eclipses, but I did not want to include them in the chart here because it'll get too confusing. I'm just focusing on the main signs here, okay? So the question is now, what is the big celestial sign that marks the end of this whole 7-year period? And according to what we've seen already, whatever it is, it has to be really profound. And here it is, folks. Now, we were not even aware of this sign until only up to a few weeks ago, and that is the Star of Jacob. Now, what's so significant about this sign? Well, there are multiple reasons why this sign is where it's at. First reason, it falls on September 27, 927, and right away we think of the Daniel 927 7-year agreement that transcends over the time of Jacob's trouble, the 7-year tribulation. So we have the Star of Jacob falling on the day that represents the 7-year agreement that transcends over Daniel's 70th week. Daniel 927, September 27, 927. I know, you can't make this stuff up. But here's the thing, this sign actually has a dual meaning. Actually, I would say a triple meaning. You see, the Star of Jacob was a red giant that went supernova almost 2,000 years ago. That's right. This star went nova right about the time of the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, when the Messiah was cut off from Israel at the end of the 69th week. But because of the distance of this star, it took almost 2,000 years for the light of this supernova to reach us here on the earth, where it will actually be visible for us to see. Just like Jesus being the light of the world, who walked the earth almost 2,000 years ago, ascended into heaven and is going to return, and he will be visible for us to see when we meet him in the air at the rapture resurrection. Both lights took place at the same time, and none of us living today were able to see them. And now both lights will reach the earth around the same time when we will see both of them. And we see a picture of this in Numbers 24:17 that talks about the characteristics of the Star of Jacob. It says, I shall see him, but not now. I shall behold him, but not nigh. Doesn't that sound like what we're looking at right here with the Star of Jacob? The light of that supernova took place almost 2,000 years ago. None of us were there to see it. We just have to have faith that that happened. Just like Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection. We didn't see it 2,000 years ago. We weren't there. We just have faith that it happened. But the proof of this supernova is about to manifest here on the earth when the light of that event reaches us on September 27th of this month. This verse goes on to say, there shall come a star out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel, and shall smite the corners of Moab, and destroy all the children of Sheth. This is the fulfillment of what happens at Jesus' second coming to the earth to set up his millennial reign. The Star of Jacob wasn't visible 2,000 years ago, but it will be visible here soon. And Jesus, who ascended to heaven 2,000 years ago, will also manifest in the air when he returns for the church at the rapture resurrection. Essentially, both lights manifested back then, and not too long from now, both lights will manifest in the heavens for us to see at the rapture resurrection. Now, the Star of Jacob has one more additional meaning, and it has everything to do with the third and final sector of the 17-year time frame, the next 7 years, which will be the 7-year tribulation, Daniel's 70th week. And there are other celestial signs in this next sector that confirms that the next sector will be the 7-year tribulation, which means the rapture resurrection is at hand. Now folks, we are now entering sector 3, the third and final sector of this 17-year timeline, the 7-year tribulation. Now, the next celestial sign we're going to look at are 3 blood moons that fall on Purim 3 years in a row. The first one actually already happened this year on March 24th. Then the next one will fall on March 13th, 2025, and the third and final one will fall on March 3rd in 2026. And why is this significant? Well, first of all, Purim, we all know, deals with the story of Esther. Esther, who's a Jewish woman who got married to the king of Persia. She kept her faith a secret from him, but then eventually she revealed it in order to save all the Jewish people from total annihilation. And the fact that this sign is taking place during a time where the Jews will face total annihilation from the earth during the time of Jacob's trouble is no coincidence. This is a huge warning for Israel. And what's interesting is this sign is completed right before the midpoint of the tribulation, and what happens at the midpoint of the tribulation? The 2 witnesses are killed. And what does the Bible say that happens right after they are killed? Revelation 11 verse 10. And they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them and make merry, and shall send gifts one to another, because these 2 prophets tormented them that dwelt on the earth. And what do the Jews do to celebrate Purim? They wear extravagant costumes, and they exchange gift baskets. Yeah, I know. You can't make this stuff up. So this can represent the time the 2 witnesses are killed, perhaps maybe around Purim, which would be about mid-trib. So it's interesting that these Purim blood moons are here. And like in the story of Esther, they were facing total annihilation. And going forward from mid-trib, the Jews will face total annihilation again. He will have his armies surround Jerusalem so no Jews can get out, and then he will try to force them to take the mark of the beast. This is why Jesus warned them in Matthew 24. If you're on the housetop, don't go back down to get anything out of your house. Get out. If you're in the fields, don't go back into Jerusalem. That's the last place you want to be during this time. So ultimately, these blood moons are a warning of what's coming mid-trib. And just think about it, when they're building that temple and they see those blood moons in progress, they're going to run to the rabbis and say, "Hey, Rabbi, those blood moons are a warning for us. I thought we're in this time of peace and everything was great. So what are those blood moons warning us of?" And the rabbi would be like, "Don't worry about it." Yep, it's coming, folks. Those blood moons are right where they belong. And another thing I want to point out is the Bethlehem star that took place back in the middle of the previous 7-year period on December 21st, 2020. The pattern we're seeing is whatever celestial sign manifested in the 7-year warning was actually marking what was going to happen in the next 7-year period and when it was going to take place. So here we have the Bethlehem star in the middle of the 7-year warning period. And why did God place that there? Well, we know in the next 7-year period, right in the middle, what takes place: the death and resurrection of the 2 witnesses. The Bethlehem star stands for a new beginning, and the 2 witnesses will have a new beginning when they are resurrected and caught up into heaven at the midpoint of the tribulation, Revelation chapter 11. And this Bethlehem star also marks the new beginning of the Antichrist when he goes from being the man of sin to the son of perdition. And Satan always tries to mimic God. He always tries to mimic Jesus by calling himself the morning star. So it's no surprise that during the 7-year warning period, we see the Bethlehem star marking the midpoint of the 7-year warning, because it's showing us what's going to happen at the midpoint of the following 7-year period. All right, family, we are now heading towards the end of this timeline, and we are now going to look at the final sign that will take place before Jesus returns for his second coming at the end of this entire timeline. And that is a super celestial sequence that takes place at the Feast of Trumpets in 2030. And this celestial sequence has the return of Jesus Christ and the establishment of the beginning of his millennial reign written all over it. And what's interesting is it shows up right at the 6-year mark, the 1-year warning before the return of Jesus Christ. And folks, this is right where it belongs, because what happened at the completion of year 6 of the 7-year warning in the previous 7 years? God gave us a massive sign with the Nishimura comet and the child asteroid passing through the Revelation 12 sign, along with a whole host of other celestial bodies passing through the Revelation 12 sign. And here we are again at the end of the tribulation with a focus on the Revelation 12 sign, which is a woman giving birth. So the question is, why does God want us to focus so much on the Revelation 12 sign 1 year before the end of each of these 7-year periods? It's because, like I said before, it's a picture of a woman giving birth. Just like we saw at the end of the 7-year warning, we're seeing the same thing here take place at the end of the 7-year tribulation. A sign in the heavens that marks a 1-year warning, declaring the second return of Jesus Christ to the earth to set up his millennial reign. And now we see here at the end of the 7-year tribulation in 2030, another super sign dealing with the Revelation 12 sign, signifying that 1 year from this point, something major is going to take place, which we know as the return of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and also a mass resurrection event of everybody that needs to be resurrected at this point. Another corporate physical birth. So let's do a quick breakdown of the sign. I'll give you a much clearer picture of it right here. So what you're looking at right here is a celestial alignment that takes place at the Feast of Trumpets in 2030. And everything in this celestial sequence is announcing the second coming of Jesus Christ to set up his millennial reign on the earth. If you go